If I try to read what just came on the screen, this capacitor will fly away. Thank you, Mr. Rossman. You taught me how to make a living for myself. I'm 100% my own boss and way happier because of you. Thank you, says Christian Stout. Well, don't give me credit for that. Give you credit for that because you're the one who built your business. You're the one who made your customers happy. You're the one doing all the work. I don't know what you're giving me credit for, but I really appreciate that you were able to build something in this industry. And that's part of the incentive and the motivation for me to keep doing what it is that I'm doing and trying to ensure that this stays a business so that people can continue making customers happy and restoring devices and making money while they make their customers happy. Thank you very much. Your support means the world to me. It's very kind of you. Very kind thing to say. Hey everybody, how's it going? So today we're going to get started fixing yet another dead MacBook over here in our beautiful New York City store location. This is a MacBook Air that has no power. And, oh man, this looks like it has seen better days. From the bottom of it being scratched to it being filled with dog hair to, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. All right, so we're going to take this out of the case and go from there. Now, as you can see, the same sick, evil fuck that opened the last one seems to have opened this one because the DC-in board is screwed into the case, meaning that you can't test it without having the case handy, which is insanely inconvenient. What kind of sick, evil, twisted, perverted bastard would do such a thing? I'm confident it's not somebody that works here. So we are going to unscrew the DC-in board. And we are going to do this. We are going to do this. Okay, the little DC-in board is out. I'm going to plug the DC-in board in. We are going to unplug and unscrew the SSD. I will take Chris's hotel room. Ha! No. Yeah, I'm thinking of getting some of the people here to go to a... I just want to kind of test the waters with the Florida locations, so I'm offering some of the top employees here the opportunity for a vacation, particularly starting with the ones that have expressed the desire to leave the city. So, you know, we're just gonna see. Gonna see what they say, see what they think. Start you out with a free all expenses paid vacation. Okay, so what do we got here? So we have 121 milliamps, and it's not turning on. Well, oh, we got a little light in the charger. Good, my light in the charger's finally decided to work. And does anybody notice anything? What do you guys see? Let's see. What do you all see over here? What do you got? Yeah, indeed, Chris Long, indeed. But you don't see food. Yeah, there actually is food. It's just you got to zoom in a little bit to be able to see it. No problem. What do you see now? You better be able to see it. That damn lens that I put on this camera was like $400 or $500 to get something that zooms that much on an overhead camera. So I hope you see it. Exactly. Now, here's the reason that I love being able to see the amount of amperage the board is taking. What I do mentally is once I figure out where the corrosion is on the board, I then associate the amount of amps it was taking with that being the problem. Now, here's why this is important. This time, I have an obvious indicator, which is liquid damage and burn marks around this chip that I then associate with it taking 130 milliamps. What if there was no liquid damage? What if that chip had just magically failed? How would I know? How would I know that that failed? Now, I could do a bunch of measuring of every single thing in the circuit. I could waste an hour of my life. Or I could remember that the one time that it was taking 138 milliamps, that just so happened to coincide with corrosion on that chip, and then I will jump to checking that chip in that area. This is a shortcut. And as you work on devices over and over and over again, each time you work on that device, each time you do a component level board repair on it, each time you do some sort of open-ended troubleshooting, you are making it easier for the next time that you work on that device. So the first repair takes you 4 hours. The second repair takes you 2 hours. Third repair takes you half an hour. Fourth repair takes you a half hour. Fifth repair takes you 10 minutes. Sixth repair takes you a minute, and so on and so forth. This is the idea, to save that information inside your head or write it down. And that's what we're doing at repair.wiki, by the way. If any of you want to help out, this is a project of mine where we have, okay, let's say you have no backlight. Here's all the different things it can be. When you have no audio, here's all the different things it can be. And if you were interested in checking out information on this particular board, you could actually search for it, and you could find it by searching for 820-00165. Really? Are you fucking... Is the search function on my own website this bad? Oh, come on. Okay, here we go. So, over here, 23 to 24 milliamp draw. Here's the possibilities. 36 milliamp draw. Here's the possibilities. 70 milliamp draw. Here's the possibilities. And so on and so forth. I want to document all of this so that when you start doing these repairs, instead of it taking 4 hours, then 2 hours, then an hour, then a half hour, then 10 minutes, on your first repair, it should be able to take you 10 minutes because you have all of this information on display for you. That's where I'm putting a lot of my time now. It's not necessarily into board repair videos, but rather it's in taking every single piece of information from over 7 years of doing this out of my head and putting it into a database so it's publicly accessible without you having to spend 10 or 20 or 40 hours watching all these boring-ass videos, listening to me rant and curse along the way. And if you have information to contribute to these videos, we'd highly appreciate it. I'm very thankful to people like Tim Herman at TCRS Circuit that you could find at youtube.com/TCRS Circuit that contributed a lot to the Macbook sections. And also to people like Jesse Cruz, who contributed a lot to the iPhone section. You could find him on YouTube at youtube.com/VCC Board Repairs. I'm very happy and grateful that he was willing to contribute a lot here. All right. Let's see what we can do. First thing I'm going to do is just put a little bit of flux over here. Just a little bit of flux. Not too much. Not too much. You don't want to put too much flux. It's wrong to put too much flux, right? Just a little bit. Also note that there's corrosion up here. See the green? See the green? So I'm going to get some flux over there, and I'm going to reflow this chip as well because I don't trust it. By the way, I wanted to say to all of you who are watching right now, thank you very much for being a subscriber to this channel in the new year. I genuinely appreciate it. I know I don't always make the most entertaining content. I know that at times I can be a cunt. But you stand by and you stay subscribed, and I appreciate it. I appreciate your viewership. Thank you. Whether it's on YouTube, on Twitch, on Library, or on Odyssey, your viewership is appreciated. And your contributions to websites like repair.wiki are also appreciated. Thank you very much. Thank you for helping me spread what I enjoy to the world. A little bit of repair, a little bit of economic security, and the ability to take away stress from people that think that they've destroyed something that they were able to give back to them in working condition again someday. So now it's going to require a little bit of scraping to get those pads back, as you can see. It's going to be a little bit of scraping. Okay, what do we got? A little bit of scraping with some Goot wick. As you can see, this is, yeah, that's see all that red stuff? That's what used to be board. It's kind of like board blood. That's that's the best way I can describe it, is board blood. Like when the board dies, it actually gets kind of bloody. You may have thought that this is not a biological creature, but it kind of is. That because you get this weird red thing when the board corrodes in an area. It's kind of... Yeah, let's clean that off a little bit. Let's clean all that residue before we go back to our scraping. Because there are pads under that, and we are going to be able to work with the pads under that. It's just it's not going to be very pretty. But at the end of the day, the customer is usually more than happy to save some money by getting a device back that may not be perfectly pretty on the inside, if it's still pretty on the outside. Remember, they're not going to see the motherboard. They're going to see the screen and everything else. And at the end of the day, it's on the outside. The outside looking good is what counts. It's not what's on the inside. Wait a second. Don't take dating advice from me. Okay, this is something else. Oh my God. What is all of this? I still use Linux because Paul Daniels took away my license for Windows, and he forced me to utilize open source Stallman software like he does. This is not of my own free will. This is due to the evil of Paul Daniels. Okay. Is this even remotely solderable to? And further, what is this pad supposed to be? What is this bullshit over here? Like, there are so many questions to ask here. So many questions. You've got questions, we've got answers. Actually, we've got bankruptcy and shitty cell phone contracts to replace what used to be a once burgeoning enterprise for people who were interested in electronics. But yeah, the decline of Radio Shack over a 20-year time period was really sad. So we are going to open up a schematic and a board view. Okay. Schematic and board view. Bada bing, bada boom. And zoom in over here. Now what is this? So that is, it looks like ground. That looks like it's ground. Okay, so it's not the ends of the world. It's not, and this, I'll just make sure that that still goes to ground. And over here, this corrosion was PP1V05SO, which goes to the CPU. Now, I want you to think about this. If there's enough corrosion that that section of the board looks like that, what do you think the chances are that the CPU got a little bit more than 1.05 volts? Maybe got a little punch of 5 volts or a punch of 12. You have to understand that there's going to be a chance here that the CPU is dead even if we replace all the circuitry that was powering it. And that is quite disappointing. That means that there's a lower chance, lower likelihood of this being a functional repair or something that you can give back to a customer and collect money on. And it's something that I'm going to keep in mind if I run into more and more issues later. Because at the end of the day, if you run a business with a no-fix, no-fee policy, which I think is fair when it comes to stuff like this, you have to know when to call it quits. Because you can't spend 5 hours on one board at the expense of everything else in your queue, or you'll have a bunch of angry customers. In the beginning, when you don't have a lot of customers, or if you live in the middle of absolute bumfuck nowhere like Paul Daniels does in Queensland, Australia, where they have about a population of 8 people and a few kangaroos, you have a week to work on a single board to figure out a problem. But that's not going to happen if you're in a more populated area. So, let's see if we're able to solder to these pads. And let's see if we're able to do a little bit more scraping. Paul Daniels is mad at me because he's not the one that owns the kangaroo. What are some commonly needed chips for MacBooks that you don't have a good source for? ISL 9240 is easy to get on AliExpress. What about others? CD3217 is a pain in the ass. CD3217 is a pain in the ass. ISL 9240s have gotten easier. It's just what sucks is like it took 3 fucking years for it to get easy to get a chip that was essential to doing our job. I take out everything on Paul Rob Brown. I take out everything on people named Paul. Paul S, Paul D. Like, pretty much anybody with the name Paul gets the short end of the stick. If they're in my aura. Okay, so some serious scraping is going to be needed here. We're going to see what I can get done with the iron. Scrape. Scrape with high temperature. That is being very, very picky. This is really, really not coming off. Look at that. Okay, let's try with the wick again. I'm going to be a bit more mean to the pad than I was before. If this were an iPhone, that pad would be off the board by now. One thing to understand if you're watching me do all this is how hard you could scrape. It's going to be really dependent on the particular board that you're working on. You try to do this with an iPhone, and you are going to be FUKD fucked. It's not going to go well, because the pad is going to come flying off of the iPhone. Pads on iPhones are kind of stuck to the phone board with, I think it's juicy fruit gum. I think that not even fresh juicy fruit gum. I think they just take some, like 2-week-old juicy fruit gum, and they use it to stick the pad onto the board. But I'm being serious here. If you're doing this type of work, do not do the type of wicking I am doing here on an iPhone board. You will have no pads left. You have to be a lot more gentle, and you should also use a lower temperature when doing your soldering. Yeah, this is okay. We're finally close to a pad that I can call acceptable here. I don't have as much of a pad as I'd like, but I got something that is going to conduct more than well enough. Sweet Mercy Kangaroo says Montetagima. Sweet mercy indeed, man. Sweet mercy indeed. Sweet mercy. What about green UV oil? Don't know. What is that strange noise I hear? Ah, that's some good old-fashioned Sweet Mercy. This is not perfect. This is about as good as we're going to get. And I'm going to just give this a little bit more filing. And you can't solder on top of corrosion, but you can try to file away the junk with some flux, some heat, and my tip. It's going to keep filing away until I get through all of that junk. And I'm hoping, I'm not starting to solder on top of the corrosion. I want the corrosion and the junk on the board to get sucked up onto this solder blob. Okay, that's going to be a bit more difficult to see, so I'll just turn up the light a little bit. I probably should turn up the HDR. Yeah, let's see. I'm going to turn up the HDR a little bit. Let's see. Is there a way to do that without it being... No, you can't turn the HDR up too much here. It washes out the image, unfortunately. Okay. So we're going to do a bit more. We're going to do one more wicking session. We're going to do one more wick session. Some John Wick. And yeah, see that? See that? I got a nice little pad back over there. Look at that. So now the entire, it's not just a small portion of it that is solderable. That entire square is now solderable. I don't want to accept a pad where I'm putting solder on top of corrosion. I do not want that cap to be sitting on top of corrosion that is not going to conduct properly. Even if it's going to half conduct, I don't want that. I want a fully conductive pad, and I'm willing to continue scraping until I get that. I'm willing to continue scraping and just begin. Be careful with your scraping, but that's what I want. You can always put it on there and it'll probably conduct, but you want to do the type of work where if somebody else opens this up, you know that you can be proud of what you did. Again, it may not be super pretty. It may not be super pretty if the board looked like shit and, it got corroded horribly, but you want to be able to be proud of the work that you did. And we're almost there. Keep in mind, there's a good chance that I'm doing all of this for a board that has a dead CPU. That would be funny if this has a dead CPU. I mean, that would be really funny if this had a dead CPU, because this would mean that all this time I'm putting in is for nothing. And that's very possible. With my luck, it is very possible that everything I am doing right now is a complete waste of time. Do you know how much the customer pays if I'm not able to make this work? $0. No money. Now again, I don't have to solder those two components above perfectly in place, because while I'm soldering the chip itself in place, that's all going to fall into place. Magewell 4-port, Paul Daniels, never changed it. I got two of them, but I never used I don't actually use the second one for anything anymore. That was when I had some illusion that I could get everybody else here to do videos at their own stations, or Steve to do data recovery videos. And that was that was a while ago. That was a bit of a fantasy of mine. Okay. So, do this. There's a little cap that I gotta get on the corner of the board, and then we're set. One little capacitor. And if this doesn't work at the end, because it has a dead CPU, I'm gonna ship this to Charters Towers in Queensland, Australia for a repair. The land of the Queen. Queensland. If I try to read what just came on the screen, this capacitor will fly away. Thank you, Mr. Rossman. You taught me how to make a living for myself. I'm 100% my own boss and way happier because of you. Thank you, says Christian Stout. Well, don't give me credit for that. Give you credit for that, because you're the one who built your business. You're the one who made your customers happy. You're the one doing all the work. I don't know what you're giving me credit for, but I really appreciate that you were able to build something in this industry. And that's part of the incentive and the motivation for me to keep doing what it is that I'm doing and trying to ensure that this stays a business so that people can continue making customers happy and restoring devices and making money while they make their customers happy. Thank you very much. Your support means the world to me. It's very kind of you. Very kind thing to say. Okay. Now, I think there's some corrosion hiding under this chip. Call it just an intuition. I think this middle top pad is going to look like shit. But one way to find out. My intuition was wrong. It was just a little bit of dirt. So see how there's a little bit of dirt on the top over here? I thought that meant that this chip was going to be in bad condition, and it wasn't. China may be trying to turn off Australia. You can just turn off a country? Like really? Like a light switch? Like you can just shut it down? That's crazy. How do you turn off Australia? I guess you travel there and cough. Oh, too soon. Yeah, that's kind of fucked up. My bad. I shouldn't have said that. Too soon. Too soon. Okay. Put this over here. Let's replace it. Since remember in the beginning of the video there was a little bit of corrosion by here anyway? And that all says power good chip is a common thing to have fail when it... So... My husband always turns me off, said Debs. What's a good price for a CD3215? It needs firmware. I do believe it needs firmware. I honestly don't know what a good price for it is. Like, I from the bottom of my heart, my inventory guy and my staff does my ordering now. I used to know this shit, like, I used to have all of it memorized, and I don't anymore, because they do it, and they do a better job of keeping up with it than I do, honestly. Yeah, so, I honestly don't know. I don't know, like $7-8 to buy in bulk is what I'd prefer. Obviously, I prefer it to be way cheaper, but I'm just thinking of the pricing for the CD3215s, what they were when you could buy it in bulk. Perhaps it's unfair to apply that to the CD3217. Okay, so let's see if we have anything different here. So I'm going to turn off the fume extractor because this thing is loud. I keep the light fan on for a while. The light has its own little fan because it's a halogen lamp. That's what makes it brighter than my other LED one. You'd think LED would be brighter than halogen, but apparently it isn't because my old LED one was way less bright than this. So we are going to plug this in. And my goal is to see if I'm getting 500 milliamps, 600 milliamps and turning on, and a fan spin. And I have a fan spin, which means there is a chance that the CPU is not dead. But there is always that chance the CPU is dead. What I'm really looking for here is an image. So what I need to do now, the next test over here, and again, usually I would consider it fixed with a fan spin, and I would leave it to the reassembly crew to make sure everything else is working. But the reason I'm looking for a fan spin here, I mean more than a fan spin here, I should say, is because this board had damage to what was powering the CPU, which houses the GPU, which is the brain of the computer. So there's a really good chance that this doesn't turn on anymore. Okay, so let's see what we have here. Stop that. You focus on the screen. You focus on the screen, not on the camera. It's focusing on its reflection. Silly. Suppose one of the things we can do to give us a prediction as to how this is going to work out. Let's check out what the backlight voltage is.
Oh, sweet mercy.
Oh, it's for sweet fucking mercy. Thank you, Coder. It's 2 pounds more than I deserve. Sweet mercy. Okay, what do we have for screen backlight? Screen backlight is 25.6 volts. That's actually looking up. 25.6 volts means that... Yes! All right, we got an image. Oh, look at that, folks. So just a little bit of cleaning up. And we got ourselves a nice little working MacBook. And again, in my head, I now got an association for myself. And I also got something that I got to add to Repair.wiki. Or if one of you could do it for me because I'm lazy. And I'm going to forget to because I haven't eaten yet. No, but seriously, I have something, a new association, which is when I have 130, 150 milliamps, that typically, that could mean that I'm missing PP1V05SO. And one thing that's interesting is I think that's already kind of partially written over here. No power, 150 milliamp draw. SO rail P good is all says power good failed. Like SO P good C fails. Clean up and okay, that's a different issue altogether. Yeah, so this is a different one. This is a mildly different one. But I am happy. I got something I have to add to my wiki. And I hope you're happy. Hope that you learned something. See you all in the next video. Bye now.